Hello and welcome to Huddersfield Town's preview show ahead of our game against Stoke City. To talk us through and preview the action, I'm delighted to say I'm joined by former Huddersfield Town midfielder and, of course, academy coach Dean Whitehead and Stephen Chicken from the Huddersfield Examiner. How are you both? You okay?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you.
Yeah, very well. Thanks, Adam.
Excellent. Dino, thank you for joining us. How are you, first of all? Because it's been a little while since we've been able to catch up.
Yeah, no, I'm good. Obviously, it seems like a long time, but it's not really. It's only, what is it, a year or so?
Yeah.
But, lots of things have happened since then with me moving to Shrewsbury and Huddersfield again, changing certain parts of their coaching team, and all the stuff that I've heard about Carlos, really intrigues me. I like that sort of style, obviously in the Bielsa mold. But no, yeah, in general, all good. Lots of learning curves along the last year, but ready to go again.
Yeah, I was going to say, obviously, you left Huddersfield Town to go to Shrewsbury. Obviously, you're not there at the moment, but how was that as a kind of learning experience for you?
Oh, it's brilliant. I've taken so much out of it. It was a tough job to leave Huddersfield. I had a good job there. Lots of really, really talented young players that were going to come through, whether I was there, whether anybody was there, because the talent's so high. But I felt like I wanted to go in the first team and experience it, experience what happens in the first team environment. And obviously it didn't end as well as I'd liked or we'd liked, but lots of things to learn from, lots of positives. Because you can always spin it as a negative, but there's so many positives within that spell.
Yeah, I can imagine. And obviously, while you were there, one person that Town fans were particularly interested in was Scott High. Obviously, he's back with us now. You had an excellent relationship with him in the academy, and then obviously were a vital part in him going to Shrewsbury. First of all, when you're in the academy, what did you see from him, and why did you then want to bring him to Shrewsbury?
I just see standards, very, very high standards, whether that's in the gym, whether that's in a meeting, whether that's analysis on the pitch, training, whatever it is, his standards are so high, and he has a mentality that he will play at the highest level. And only time will tell, but he has all the attributes to do that. And I just felt for the training part of it, first of all, coming to Shrewsbury, he would raise the level, and he would kind of show some of the lads that haven't had that kind of standard and that level, that this is the standard that I'm going to set. So if you're in a team, I'm going to come and grab your shirt almost. And he done that from day one, which I knew he would. People always talk about him in terms of he's quite small, he's not physical enough. He's all of those. He is physical. You get him in the gym, he'll probably lift more than most players. He can run for fun. And technically he's very, very good. Obviously, he's got lots of things to learn in terms of actual playing games and getting the opportunity. But I just felt it was brilliant for him to reward almost him for having that standard and mentality in the academy. I almost thought it's a reward for him, right? Let's have a look at you in this environment. Let's see if you can handle what League One's got to offer you. And, he played 20, 22 games or whatever it was, or played a part in them. And, that's going to be enormous for his development in terms of game management, handling different styles of football, because it's not all on the floor in League One. It's not the 25, 30, 40 passes. It's not. It's get it out. It's get it at the front, man. You got to get second board. You got to scrap, and hopefully that will hold him in good stead for his future.
For Town fans listening to that, Steve, it's quite exciting, isn't it?
Yeah, he's obviously a prospect that Town are very keen on. He's been the captain of the academy, has been the academy's player of the year as well previously. So we know he's a talented player, and we've had a couple of glimpses of him in the first team over the last few weeks. I think possibly not in circumstances where he's necessarily going to get the opportunity to show himself at his best. It'd be great to see him in a game where Town are sort of on top and doing their own thing well. And he's obviously, I know that he's sort of pegged as being on that same trajectory, hopefully, as Lewis O'Brien, who went and had a similar loan at Bradford City before he made his breakthrough into the first team at Town, and obviously came in and hit the ground running and did well. And I think it sort of speaks volumes that as soon as he came back to Huddersfield Town after his loan was terminated and was available for selection back in the Championship, that Carlos Corberán was looking at him straight away and considering him as an option for the midfield.
Not to completely compare him to Lewis, but there are some similarities there, aren't there, Dino, in terms of his pressing, his desire to win the ball back, and his attitude and work ethic.
Yeah, I think so. That there are, and I think the really good thing that Huddersfield have got there now is they've got Lewis O'Brien, who's flying, could go on to be anything. But the thing is with Scotty, his mentality will be, I have to be as good as Lewis. I have to be better than Lewis. So that kind of edge that he'll have, and Lewis will think, well, I'm going to get further away from Scotty. And the challenge and the the competition that high level players have just raises the standard of the individual and the team, I think, and to have both of them, you're very lucky.
I'm interested to know how you took him under your wing. Obviously, he's a centre midfielder. So were you in your playing days, and one that achieved great things in the Premier League and the Championship. How have your experiences helped mould Scott's game?
Yes, you can help him along the way, but I think Scotty is Scotty. I as the coach or any of the coaches haven't done it for him. Yes, we can guide him. Yes, we can show him what we want to do, but he's one that does it. He's one that eats properly, sleeps properly, lives the game, obsessed with football. And I think that's one thing that to be at the top you need to do. But in terms of, I've gone through conversations with him, millions of times about certain positions to pick up, second balls, or don't get yourself in a physical duel when you don't need to, how you go about it, how you read the game. But you tell him once and he does it. He's just one of those. He's so intelligent and he understands the game and he listens and takes it all on board, and he just does it so quickly. And you tend to do one thing, he does it. You think, well, what else can we ask Scotty to do? Okay, do this. Okay, go and play right back. Okay, he performed well at right back. But look, he's a talented player, but let's not get away from it. He's still got lots and lots and lots to prove, lots to do. But he's on the right track.
He's another one, Steve, that's Huddersfield born and bred.
Yeah, I think fans always have a special connection, obviously, with players that are from the hometown and who, especially those who sort of come through the academy. We've seen it with Ryan Schofield as well. And I think everyone likes to sort of try and see themselves in the players that are representing them, particularly sort of younger fans. And I think that can be important to people, to see themselves represented on the pitch like that. Yeah,
and there's a few, obviously, Dino, that you worked with. Like you said, it was only a kind of a year ago, or around a year ago, when you left Huddersfield Town. But because of the current situation, it does feel a lot longer. But it's hard to dismiss. Like you worked with Romani Edmonds-Green, Josh Osterfield, Aaron Rowe, Matty Daly, Mustafa Olagunju, just to name a few there. A lot of them have come through. Like, how happy and proud does that make you that you had a part in their development, and you can see them either, like in Ramsey's case, playing regularly, or he was obviously before this injury for the first team, and the others that are teetering in and around it.
Yeah, it's nice. But again, it's down to them. I mean, I remember having a conversation with Rams about going to Brighouse, and I didn't like the conversation at all. I didn't like it. He didn't like it. We said, look, we promise you this is going to be good for you, and you will benefit from it. And he hasn't looked back since. But we always knew that he was going to be a late developer. He was always good with the ball at his feet, and he's doing really well in the first team. Same Roms as well. Roms was in out. He was a difficult one, but again, he stuck his head down, worked, grafted, and got his chance. And I think it's great for those type of players that I think at certain times they probably did feel that they had to leave, maybe, to go and play. But they stuck to the process, stuck to the plan, and the academies at Huddersfield is very, very good, and the talented players that obviously Emma Hughes brought in at the time. You got Brahima still, you got Loic. I mean, you've got some good players, Pat Jones. I've got a list down there. It's that long. But no, you're very you're in a very, very good position with the young players.
Talk to us about Rams and that Brighouse move then, because I can imagine a lot of people back in the day will have seen that and seen Rams kind of in and around the first team, especially in pre-season duties, and then they see that he goes to Brighouse, obviously low down in terms of the football pyramid. When you're talking to a kind of young player about that and moving that low down, when they probably see themselves as being at an ability that's better than a club like Brighouse, how do you have to sell that to a player? And equally, what do you think that loan spell has kind of done for his game?
It was a difficult conversation because I spoke to him. I think I spoke to him a week before, and he wanted to maybe go to a national league, somewhere a little bit higher. And we just had to basically sit him down and say that these are the reasons why we are sending you there. It's not because you're not good enough to go anywhere else. He said, we think this is the right place for you to defend long balls constantly, win your headers, win your battles, play against a big number 9, get pushed around, get beat up a little bit sometimes. And I think he gained. Yes, he did feel the standard was easy for him in terms of the quality of the player. But I think in terms of the physical element of that and what was required and the completely opposite to how we were playing at the time. So you're getting the ball, you're going long, the next thing's coming back, and you're fighting with a big number 9. And we just laid it down very, very simply. He didn't like it, which rightly so, but we had a process and a reason why, which helped.
It's interesting.
He's gained so much confidence.
Yeah, I can imagine. It's interesting, Steve, isn't it? From hearing that, because you can see when Rams is on the pitch now, he really relishes those physical battles, and there's a lot of strikers in this league that are big units that he's had to deal with.
Yeah, and I think he's obviously still got a way to go, because it's It's obviously it's a big step up, but he's gone to League Two to Swindon and done really well with them, who were right at the very top of League Two, and was Player of the Month for them. And we know that he's above that standard. He's done well, I think, overall in the Championship. There's been a couple of one-on-ones where I think he almost needs to learn how much he can get away with in the Championship almost.
Yeah.
You can get away with a lot more going shoulder to shoulder with players and being a bit tighter with them than perhaps you can at academy level and lower down the leagues. But that's the kind of thing that comes with experience, and that's the kind of thing that comes when you've played 25, 30, 40 games at Championship level. So for him to have had that run in the side over Christmas and into the new year will have stood him in really good stead. And, you talk about that Brighouse loan, he speaks really highly of that loan spell now. He always, the phrase that players always use is, and Lewis has used this as well about Bradford, is it made a man of me? I think as you've alluded to, Dino, you almost want them to have a bit of that cold water splashed on them and that little bit of a culture shock to realise that there's another side of the game.
Yeah, of course, and walking into a dressing room full of fully grown men who've probably just got back from work and thinking, what's going on? And dealing with it and understanding that that's football at their level, and 3 points is vital to them. And obviously he had success there and they got promoted, and he hasn't looked back. But in terms of the balance between that League Two, Championship, obviously League Two, he did really, really well at Swindon. They played good football under Richie Wellens at the time, but you don't get those second chances in the Championship if you give someone too much space or get too tight. There's top players in the Championship who will punish you, but he'll learn and he'll only get better. That's a good thing about young players. They've got plenty of time, and I see lots of the young players playing in Huddersfield's team, not all the time, now and every now and again, and he will give opportunities to young players, and that for a talented group of young players which are underneath the first team right now, that's enormous for them.
Yeah, we've seen flashes of the youngsters, and like you say, you've got a long list next to you on the ones that you worked with and have got high potential. From a Huddersfield Town perspective, which were the players, or can you remember the guys that really kind of stood out for you?
When I was there,
yeah.
I think we always knew. I think I watched Brahima and Loic a couple of times before they come, and we went to Leicester. We went to Leicester and played their 23s, I think it was. And I just stuck Brahima. I think no, both of them. Loic started and Brahima was on the bench. And after that game, I can just remember. I think I turned around to might have been Paul Bauer and just said, these kids are going to be top level. And obviously they've grown and grown and grown since then already in a short space of time. So they will be good players, but obviously then you can't look past Scotty eyes. I mean, just because of the mentality and the intelligence and the will to succeed almost. But I mean, I had a good relationship with Josh as well. Helped Josh. He's probably going to be a little bit longer in terms of he might take that extra couple of years to reach the levels that he will do, because he's so tall and gangly, but he's got lots of really good attributes. But no, there's so many. Don't forget Jaden Brown and Dee and Aaron Rowe. I remember his 2 goals in Seville. He scored one against Plymouth, actually, very, very similar to the one he did in Seville, off the right cut inside on the left foot. But yeah, very, very exciting times in the next few years for Huddersfield, I think.
It's interesting there, Steve, that Dino said Brahima straight away. Obviously, we saw a little flash of him away at Bournemouth, which was a very, very difficult game for him to come into. But he's just 17 years old, and there's loads of potential there. And for Carlos to throw him in a game like that as well, it shows that he kind of sees something there.
Yeah, I came to that Youth Cup game against Newcastle a few weeks ago, and he was Etienne Kamara, I thought, was probably the man of the match, but Brahima, for sort of from the start of the second half onwards, was borderline unplayable. You know, he did a roulette on halfway at one point to take about 3 Newcastle players out of the game, and that was a team that contained a couple of players that I think have been in the Premier League squads for Steve Bruce. So he's obviously got a lot of talent. I think obviously 17 is very young. You know, he's still got a bit of time ahead of him in the academy, you would think. But yeah, I mean, Dean's not the first person who's said his name to me when you talk about sort of youth prospects who are expected to have a big future.
Yeah,
and I mean, bear in mind, I'd literally seen him for 5 minutes. But you just know. I mean, the first thing he done, we had a throw in, and we are so bad on throw-ins. We were at the time, and literally he threw it into him. He had 2 players round him. He kind of let it roll across his body, and he switched to play. And I was like, "This kid's not bad. This kid's decent." I just think he. From his background and from his upbringing and he just has no fear. There's no fear. Like football, going into the first team training session, that wouldn't have bothered him. And I mean, top players and players that are so talented, they have that kind of attitude that I'm good enough. I don't care if I'm 16, 17. I can handle myself, no problem. And I think he could be one of those.
You can see that as well on the training videos and at training, that he goes into first team training. He's got a confidence. Him and Loic, to be fair, have got a confidence and a swagger about them, and it must help them. Obviously, having like Isaac Mbenza and Naby Sarr, who both speak French, obviously in the squad as well, because they seem quite close and pally with them, which is nice to see. Dino, for you, obviously, you're out of work at the moment. Do you look at Huddersfield Town, Stoke City a lot, the results and patterns of play and how they've both developed?
I always look at results, but it's difficult. You can't go to games at the moment, and so I'd obviously like to watch more. But having seen bits of how Carlos works and how the team plays now, and obviously how Michael O'Neill now does it at Stoke. I've not seen as much as I'd liked because of what's going on, but I do keep an eye out.
Yeah, obviously this year, Steve, it's been an interesting one, the start to 2021. We've been hit with a lot of issues in terms of injuries over the last few weeks. Not that is an excuse for not picking up our first win yet, but like we said, lost 5 in a row, 4 in the league. It is a difficult moment.
It is. Stoke are in a similar run of form as well. Stoke haven't won since before Christmas, so it's weird. The 2 teams seem to have been sort of tight. Both games that we've come into, they've both come into it with similar fortunes, because Stoke were very up and down at the start of the season. After they won at the Bet365, they then had a good run of form after that 4-3. But they seem to have dropped off again now. So it's 2 teams that have sort of they were in that relegation fight together. They always seem to be in a similar sort of position whenever they face each other. They're a strange team as well. They're similar to Town in some ways in that they are extremely up and down. You're never quite sure from one game to the next what you're going to get out of them. They tend to score goals. I think that their issue is more sort of defensive than it is goal scoring, because they've scored more goals than I think anyone in the bottom half, certainly, and they've scored more goals than Swansea and Watford, in fact, looking at the table now. But they're also conceding almost as many. So it's an interesting game in prospect. I think sort of obviously Town have not had a good start to the year. I think everyone would admit that there were some poor performances in there as well, particularly against Millwall. But the Bristol City game was a lot more encouraging despite the result. I think there were two defensive errors, and Carlos talked about that after the game and was talking about how that they just weren't good enough at that side of the game, and it's always going to be very difficult to win when you've gone 2 goals down, and everyone will be disappointed with the nature of those goals. But I can tell you the feeling in the press box at Bristol City with the guys covering Bristol was that they were really lucky to get away from that with the 3 points. Town absolutely battered them. They had as many shots in the second half at Bristol City as they'd had in the 3 previous games combined, and their XG suggested they should have won the game. They pushed close to 3 goals, unexpected goals, and hit the woodwork 4 times, and it was just one of those days, unfortunately. I think obviously they need to get back in the points because no one will remember, no one will care about having a great second half against Bristol City if they keep losing games. But I think there's a lot of encouragement to be taken from that second half, because that is much more like the Huddersfield Town that we've come to know this season.
When you're a player, Dino, and you've done what Town have done, and you've lost the last 4 league games, and in the last game you've performed as well as we did against Bristol City, especially in that second half. I think, like Steve said, we had about 24, 25 shots, 4 hit the woodwork, and expected goals of 3. And you come away without any points at all, losing the game. When you're in a little bit of a rut like that, and you have a game like that, and you come away thinking, how have we not got a result here? What's that like mentally as a player, and how hard is that to then get over?
Yeah, it's difficult. I mean, every team and every club goes through, patches of bad form, bad luck, whatever you call it. But I think the main thing is, I think if they're not creating these chances and not getting the chances, I think you'd be way more concerned if you're not creating anything. You can't keep the ball, you can't pass it to one another. That's a big problem. But I didn't see the game, but by the sounds of it, they dominated pretty much most of the game, chances. But I think you just have to stick to the process. It's very cliche. I mean, most people will probably say the same, because there's always another game around the corner, and with a good performance, you can take plenty of positives. Yes, obviously mistakes happen, and they have to learn from those and make sure they don't happen on a regular basis. But I think you stick to the manager's beliefs and ideas and keep working.
Dino said it there, Steve. I mean, it would be more disheartening if we weren't creating chances. That's the big plus from the Millwall game prior, because we had a lot of the ball, but we didn't really impose ourselves on their goal. Against Bristol City, again, we had, I think, 65% possession, but we imposed ourselves, we created chances. It's just having that clinical edge now. But there was a development in the full training week that we did have ahead of it.
Yeah, big time. I mean, the Millwall game was probably the worst performance we've seen this season, not to put too fine a point on it. And the second half against Bristol City was probably the best 45 minutes we've seen this campaign. So obviously that's hugely encouraging. I think we'd have been a lot more concerned if that Bristol City game had been another sort of very limp defeat. But there is that positive that things look to be developing. And to be honest, we did expect that things would be difficult when you saw the injury crisis and we got the news ahead of the trip to Watford, and the number of players that were out injured. Having Isaac and Benza out, Naby Sarr was out for a spell as well. Alex Pritchard's been out, Danny Ward, Jonathan Hogg, and that's on top of the ones you already had, like Josh Koroma, Richard Stearman, Christopher Schindler. And as you say, you don't want to make an excuse of it, because whatever team you pick, you want them to be getting the result. And I think there was definitely a team there against Millwall, certainly, that was as capable of getting a result. Watford, I don't think they played well, but it's a very, very difficult place to go, and Watford are in a good moment at the moment. But a lot of those players are coming back, and obviously Dwayne Holmes has been added back to the side now, which I really like the look of that signing. I've said it on our podcast as well. I think he offers a lot of drive from midfield. He's sort of a similar kind of player to Lewis O'Brien in terms of he brings that dribbling and tackling. And he's, obviously knows the club really well. He knows what's going to be expected of him. He was, by all accounts, when he was playing, he's not really played in central midfield much for Derby this year, which I know has been a source of frustration for him from what I understand. But he was there last season, and before he picked up an injury in February, he was on for Player of the Year for them. So he's very exciting. And I think crucially as well, we're starting to see, Rolando Aarons had a good game against Bristol City. He was crucial in helping create that goal. He's still not, up at that sort of 8 and 9 out of 10, but he put in a good performance. And the main thing really is just that they were willing to take risks against Bristol City, because I think against the Millwall game, things became very predictable and very sterile. But you need to be willing to sort of take chances on things. And I think it was really, really encouraging in midweek to see Town were willing to do that, and were willing to run at people, try and dribble past people, and try and find different ways through. If they keep doing that for the rest of the season, then, I think the form will still be very up and down, because those defensive issues aren't going to be solved overnight, but it's looking more positive, thankfully.
And that's kind of the difficulty at the moment, Dino. I mean, Steve mentioned it there, but we're without Christopher Schindler, Jonathan Hogg, Richard Stearman, Tommy Elphick, big leaders in that dressing room. Obviously from your playing days, when you're injured, you're not necessarily coming in at the same time as the rest of the squad. You can still have a little bit of an influence, but not the big influence that obviously you would have if you were there training and playing matches with them every day. When you've got the younger lads coming through, like a lot of the guys we've mentioned who were leaders on the academy pitch, it's completely different, isn't it? And that's something that the team then has to get used to on the pitch, someone else being that voice and getting the lads going again.
Yeah, it's difficult. Obviously, I've just heard the list of injuries. I didn't realise it was so bad, but that's that obviously shows that the manager's demands and training are high. They want their outputs on a game to be high, and ultimately that will break some. But in terms of the characters, young lads will look up to the senior players like Hoggy and Shins and Tommy out, or the senior boys. And when they're not there, all of a sudden it's like, right, who's going to be the leader today? So I think Toffs has been excellent from what I gather. I wasn't sure how well he was going to do, but he seems to took to the championship. And he seems to be taking on some leadership roles within the younger lads. But yeah, it's difficult when you're missing big characters, big talkers on the pitch like Hoggy. You almost try and glues it together, but when he's not there, then it's the chance for other people to step up and almost come out of their shell, come out of their comfort zone a little bit, and you find ways to do it. Doesn't mean you have to shout and scream and holler, and you can lead by example by the way you play.
Do you suppose do you still speak to some of the guys at Town, the likes of Hoggy, Shins, and even some of the coaching staff like Clem, Ems, Broms, for example?
No, I would drop them a message now and again, but I think with obviously when I was at Shrewsbury, it was so busy over the COVID time. After once we'd gone back, there's so many games, and before you getting home at 6:30, 7, and time's gone. But obviously, I still good friends with Shins, Hoggy, some of the other boys that are still there. I speak to Paul sometimes. Just to see what's going on. I'm always interested and intrigued to see how things are developing now. I ask how the younger boys are getting on, obviously, because I had a good relationship with most of them. So yeah.
And obviously Smithy at Stoke as well. I know you two are obviously good friends at Town, travelling in together pretty much non-stop.
Yeah. Still speak to Smithy. Yeah, Smithy, and he's not playing at the moment, which is frustrating him a little bit. But I'm sure that there's lots of games coming up, and he'll get back in the team at some point.
Yeah, absolutely. Steve, just finally with you, you mentioned obviously Stoke's ability going forwards and the attacking emphasis that they've got, but also with Town having a little bit of difficulty at the back at the moment. But the way that we like to go forwards, it was 4-3 earlier this season, loads of goals. Are you expecting something a bit similar?
Yeah, I mean, it could well be. I mean, the way on paper, that's what it should be, shouldn't it? But I think both managers will almost like to see this as an exercise in restraint and control, because I think if either team can actually take control of the game, then they obviously stand a better chance than if they just let it devolve into chaos and let the chips fall where they may. So I think it's a good opportunity for Carlos to try and get the team to impose themselves on the opposition a bit more. That they were good at that sort of at times over December. I'm thinking of those 2-0s they had, the QPR, Sheffield Wednesday, and to a lesser extent Watford. They came under a lot of pressure in the second half against Watford, but they took control of those games and saw them out and made them fairly routine. I think that's obviously what Carlos would much prefer, because I think people have sort of got in their heads this is an attacking team, they're going to concede goals. But you can see when you talk to Carlos, he doesn't like conceding. It's not part of the game plan to concede. So yeah, I think both managers would love a nice 2-0, but we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, hopefully it's another entertaining game, but we come out on the right side this time. Steve, Dino, thank you very much for joining us. Town fans, you can watch this game live on Sky Sports, or if you're a season card holder, you also get access on iFollow HTAFC. As it's being broadcast on Sky Sports, unfortunately, you cannot purchase a match pass, but audio passes are available. Thank you very much for watching.